Join us as we dive into the history, hauntings, and high strangeness of the world to try to better understand the paranormal. I will be your guide. I am paranormal researcher and investigator Eric Freeman Sims. Welcome to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I am Eric, your host as usual, and thank you for tuning in. I'm sorry the show is a day late this week, but been very busy. And if you haven't seen the big announcement on Facebook yet, we have bought a 200-year-old haunted house. It is known as the J.B. Knight House. The Knight family lived there for 85 of the 200 years, and we're a very prominent family. It is in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and we will... are working on it. We'll be working on it to get it up and ready for paranormal investigations coming very soon. So be on the lookout for that. Also, I've started a Facebook page for the JB Knight House. If you go look it up and join that, I will put a link on the Unseen Paranormal Podcast page. And that's where I'll be posting pictures and updates on everything that we do to the house and do some videos and things. We'll be working on it quite a bit coming up. The house is livable now. It's not falling down, anything like that. It's a very sturdy house and very well built, and the previous owners did a lot of work to it. But we have a lot of work to be done as well. As any 200-year-old house needs, it needs a lot of upkeep, and there's things that need to be done to it. So we're going to get on that. And like I said, stay tuned. We're going to have a website for the house, and I will let you know when it is ready for investigations. And you can come rent it out and investigate and spend the whole night. So looking forward to that. That's the big announcement that I've been teasing for a while. We've been working on it, looking at houses. This was one of the first houses we looked at. And finally, took us a couple months, but we finally made a deal and bought it from the previous owners. So this week, we have a really cool guest. He is a trance psychic medium, and his name is Mark Elliott Fults. And he is good friends with our friend Sin Schrader Hill, the author and good friend of the show, good friend of mine. And she turned me on to him, and we had a great conversation. He is a great guy and a great guy to talk to, and lots of stories and lots of information. So without further ado, we'll get to this week's show. Here we go. Check out Mark Elliott Fults, and we'll chat next time. Have a good day. Stay safe out there. Hey, Mark, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And just so everybody knows in the audience, we've never met, but we share a mutual friend that we're both really good friends with, Sin Schrader Hill.
Yes.
Love her to death. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's a real good friend.
Yeah.
Really good.
And you've done, you've written some things with her and also done some artwork for her books.
Oh, yes. Yes. We actually met the very last time I was working with a group that it was the last time I was going to do anything with them. And I was sick as a dog, and we were at a haunted hospital in Fayetteville. And I met her just right before I left. And we stayed friends. And I've been doing books since 2006, or working on books and doing them. And so we started collaborating on our own. And so we just do that. I'm an artist. I'm, besides being an author, I'm an artist. I'm doing an album and stuff. So I cover a lot of the arts in what I do. And so we were just very interested in quite a few of the same things. So we've been having a lot of fun putting books together.
Yeah,
she's real good.
She's amazing. I love her.
Yeah, she's a dog.
Yeah, we're fixing to go on another investigation together, and we just have a blast.
Oh, okay. Well, sometime if I'm down in Chattanooga, I'll come and hop in with y'all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd love to have you. And she actually blew me away. She asked me to write the foreword to her latest book, and so I did it, and it came out a while back, but that was, I don't know why she asked me, but I guess she liked it. So.
Well, she probably liked it. So,
Yeah, she's made a few appearances in the investigation docu series that we're doing called Strangely Haunted with my friend Austin. and she's going to be in the next one too. We use her as a trigger object at a jail. So
Okay, well that works because she's, they like her.
yeah. So how did you are a psychic medium and you do a lot of metaphysical stuff. So how did you get into? I know a lot of people are born with abilities. Like I'm an empath myself. I've never called myself a medium or anything. I'm really good with energy and living people's energy. And but how did you develop your psychic and mediumship abilities?
Well, my mother's mother and my mother were, and my apparently my grandmother was very psychic, and I was always fascinated with that. And from about the age of 6 on, I started exhibiting a little bit of that talent.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in a family where that was really accepted very well.
Yeah.
So, but I always was interested in it. And, well, everything comes from your electromagnetic field, which is produced by your third eye. And if you get blows to the head and stuff like that, it will alter your electromagnetic field, and it'll overcompensate, and you become more sensitive. And when I was young, I got abused a lot. I got hit. I would say when I was a child, I got at least 4 concussions.
Wow.
From abuse.
Yeah.
So I think those helped open the third eye a little bit. And then I had a catastrophic event when I was 30, when I was living in Chattanooga and was attacked in a random act of violence, and came back from that. It did the near-death experience twice. And that I had seen things I've been in metaphysics studying since I was 18.
Yeah.
And you get it in your head, and I mean, I was always kind of sensitive. But after that event, then I was able, it just altered and changed what I did. And it expanded my electromagnetic field, basically. And I just started, working differently, being more, working towards it. It wasn't like boom, it all fell into place. It was because you have to adjust.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to turn it up, how to turn it down, how to create meditations to control my aura, because everyone has an aura. And that's just your CAT scan. And so when you come into information, somebody else, you scan them, you pick up stuff from them, and vice versa. So, so I break it down into more of like a metaphysical, natural science. Yeah. It's just the unseen science that most people don't accept, that we are electrical beings.
Right.
And or that, I mean, if it doesn't fit in with their religious belief or whatever, there are elements of it that everyone just has. And it's just natural. And what I do is just natural for me. It just is, I see weirder things, but I've had more concussions and I say dropped on my head, talk to the dead. And call myself the fat psychic because I am. I'm 100 pounds more than what I used to be. And so, I do it with a little bit of comedy sometimes, because some of it is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then some of it is, very, very serious. And I have people come to me all the time, to look at their problems or talk to them. And it's just, it's all natural. It's like, and then people, when they're so afraid of death.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't like pain, believe me, but after my death experience, the transitioning part is so fantastic that, you just don't worry about that. Then you have to worry about, well, what am I getting done while I've got time? And then you don't worry about death, because death takes care of itself. And it's actually a wonderful experience once you start getting past the physical part. It's wonderful. So, but that's kind of like what started me on it. And then I've been in several metaphysical groups, several ghost hunting groups, several this and that and other, and you just learn so much from people who are authentic and people who are scams and scum.
Yeah.
And I had to. It's not a tribe. You have to really be careful, what you do around people and with people, and their ulterior motives, and also knowing who you are, what's your skills, what are you bringing to the table, and what you expect, and I, at this point at 62, I have a lot of things. I don't like to be unethical towards spirits. I don't like to, because if you're speaking to an energy of any sort, it can be, it's prior people, physical people.
Right.
And so you want to treat them ethically, but, professionally. And so I look at it kind of like that, so it's, and then, it's such a serious subject sometimes that you have to do something to break the monotony here and there.
Yeah.
And you can't, so like Sin and I, she's helping me do my mean old grandma's good old cookbook. And which, we'll do a cooking show off at the Fat Psychic does cooking. And we just have fun, but when I need to sit down and be serious, I can be serious as a heart attack.
Yeah.
But you just have to, you have to know what you can do and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things you said, I think it might be the best explanation I've ever heard of the psychic medium stuff and even empath stuff, is that it's your electromagnetic field and your aura kind of downloading information from other people and from the dead and energy of places and things like that. I think that's a perfect example. I always call myself a lighthouse in the dark too, because they tend to be attracted because they're like, oh, it's somebody who can at least acknowledge me, and so they a lot of times are attracted to that, I think.
Oh, exactly. And they are, and we do look like lights in the fog.
Yeah.
Because everything is kind of like a fluid we're moving through. We're moving through dark matter. We're moving through electromagnetic plasma. We're made out of electromagnetic plasma. And our auras. I've seen one thing I saw somewhere. It was great. It was an orb, which is, when the person is not in the body anymore, what that is they're just a ball of energy.
Yeah.
And that energy circles around the orb is the third eye. And when your body is created, when your spirit is in your body and the body is formed around it and it's functioning, it creates a fluid or a plasma form of everything you've got, so that when you die, you really have a gummy bear, form of yourself.
Yeah.
That contains all of that in a fluid form. And I've seen a orb before that you could see the eyes in the eye mechanisms in the orb itself. And I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah.
But it's, and then when you get close to those orbs, then your CAT scan, your aura reads it, and you see a ghost or whatever it is, or or some things are spirit, some things are not, some things are recorded, some things are conscious. And so, it just takes, so you have to look at each one because each one is different. It's just like a snowflake. Nothing is the same. There are things that never change that are pretty well, you can go, okay, I know what that is. But each person and situation is different. So each thing should be have its own details. And, but when you see, when I come into contact, my energy field comes into contact with something else, then, I listen, I learn to listen to what it's saying, what the aura picks up.
Yeah.
Through the frequency, and then it downloads through your third eye, and you go, oh, okay. You'll get the feeling. That's like when people go, I'm an empath. Well, you're feeling that through your aura around you.
Yeah.
And it's telling that whatever that information is projecting, that's what you're picking up. And the sharper you get your tool, then it begins to where you don't just feel, you begin to go, oh, okay, this is what they're saying or what it means. But sometimes you have to be careful not to open yourself too much because and if somebody knows you can hear them, they're gonna, they don't have a body to get tired in, and they'll bug the crap out of you, and you're awake a lot.
Yeah.
Because your system is going, there's something happening. So I learned how to tell people to turn it down, make a little dial and just turn it down when you don't need it. Because you have to, you still have a life to live. They just want to talk.
Yeah.
And so it's, but it can be a fascinating investigating everything out there. That, when people think you're dead, you're really not dead. Your body may have fallen off, but your energy, your frequency, and if you transition and go through the natural process, you get into the consciousness, and then that you can come back and forth as an energy. If you don't, which is totally up to the energy itself, then they have to learn how to eat and function around living people, which they don't have a life anymore. So they have to learn how to eat and how to function. And that's where you get hauntings, and the chill is, they're cold plasma. So they absorb thermal heat. So they get around you and absorb, if they can do something and scare you, you put out a little energy, you just gave them a meal.
Yeah.
So if they have enough consciousness and intelligence, they know how to get a meal.
Yeah, with batteries draining and things like that on investigations.
Oh, yeah, all the time. Yeah. And not necessarily not necessarily all things like that are trying to scare people. It's just a lot of people get scared of them.
Yeah. That's what I tell a lot of people, like, who, just because you got scratched or touched or pushed, maybe that's the only, I liken it to the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, where he has to learn how to touch things. And maybe that's the only thing they can do to get your attention. They're not trying to hurt you. They're not trying to push you downstairs. Not really trying to scratch you, but that's the only way they can physically get your attention. And
two, that's a little bit of a modern thing that people expect from ghost hunting.
Yeah.
And I think spirits go, oh, okay, if that's what they want, we can try that.
Right.
And but when I was young, you didn't hear about that as much.
Yeah.
When I was very young, I got bit by a poltergeist one time. It didn't hurt, but it looked like a little toddler had just taken his whole set of teeth and bit me on my calf. And but you didn't hear the phenomena of people being scratched or things like that until after The Exorcist came out.
Yeah.
And then, in the movie that, she had scratches, she had blisters, I would say, help me or whatever. And so that became part of the ghost hunters guidebook. They were like, ooh, I got bit, I got scratched. And so, but if that's what it takes, sometimes that's what it takes, and they'll do what it takes.
Yeah, and with that satanic panic, I think we've had another resurgence of that from the 80s and the 70s. And, it's a buzzword. The whole demon thing is a buzzword. And then people, I just find it funny. And I asked this question online. Somebody had put up one of the paranormal groups, I'm a member of 1,000 of them. Somebody put up a picture where they had 3 scratches. And they automatically jumped to some demonic mocking of the Trinity, supposedly. And I'm like, can somebody ask this question? And a lot of people liked the question, but nobody could answer it. And I asked them, I said, where in the Bible does that say that's like in your religious text? I'm agnostic. I don't do religion. But in your religious text that you're claiming you're Christian, and this comes from a demonic place, a mocking of the Trinity, just because it's 3 scratches, where's that written? Like, is that just something that you're regurgitating because that's what you've heard on TV? Or, can you specifically show me where that is a thing within Christianity or religion,
Well, some people grab onto because it's exciting.
Yeah.
And 2, the thing with, people think that Catholics wrote the exorcism, they're the control, the masters of exorcism. Well, they don't want to do them.
Yeah.
Because, for the most part, they piss a lot of things off.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at it through a spiritual lens, and some spirits are not, if they aren't beholden to whatever you're hollering at them,
right.
They can get kind of mad. And and in my case, what I think you deal with everything is energy, and you push things out and make boundaries and barriers. So a lot of exorcisms, actually, an exorcist will say, a real Catholic will say, "Oh, you go, that's why they have all this stuff where you have to jump through these hoops and hoops and hoops and hoops, and then maybe they'll send somebody and maybe not, and." But they don't want to deal with it because they know that a lot of it, there's a lot of variations, and if it's not something that really cares for what you're pushing at it, it's I've seen spirits that were not. And when people talk about demons, there are consumptive bad things out there that are bad towards us because for good reason in some cases, but they're very rare. But then there are spirits and energies that go, oh, you want to see something?
Yeah.
You want to call me that? Because it would be just like somebody coming up off the street that you don't know insulting you,
right?
And you want to pull their weaves out,
Yeah.
So it's no different, it's, but I've seen people who, the spirit could open a cabinet. Well, it's demonic. Not quite,
Yeah.
And when I was young, I remember there was a thing, there was some kind of Tupperware with 666 on it. And I thought, what does it say? Butter? I mean, what are you open it? It's toys were possessed. This was something that is. I mean, there are things that are infected and possessed, and there are something, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 2 objects. I have haunted dolls, but I have nicely haunted ones. But I have 2 items that I have to keep sealed, and they're pretty bad. But they're only activated though if you activate them.
Yeah.
And the 2 items are, I mean, one I have is a very rare book by Sybil Leek, who is a very large, well-known witch in the 60s and 70s. She, people probably don't know who she is now, but she did a book called Drawing Out the Devils. Well, it has exorcism stuff in it. And and the copy that I have, someone did something with it and left it running. So if you read the book, if you just start to read the book, and now you start having the problems, which is the fetch, the woman coming to the coming towards you and standing by your bed waiting for you to tell her what to do.
Yeah.
And so I keep it sealed, and I don't. I would like to do experiment with it and show people how things have energy and how they are affected. But it's not per se a demonic thing. It's just someone using darker, older energy to get a result of something, and then getting bored and leaving it running.
Yeah.
So it's demonic stuff. A lot of people run to that as their first excitement, thrill, or fear, and it's not as common as just sometimes it's just a bum spirit hanging out in your house, or you moved in on somebody.
One of my mottos that I always say is, if you're an asshole in life, you're probably gonna be an asshole in death.
Oh,
I mean,
I have meant that one.
Yeah, so I mean, you're more likely to come across a nasty spirit who is just grumpy or whatever than you are, something demonic or something that means you're ill.
Yeah. And if they were controlling and abusive, and they didn't transition and go on, because even though people can be affected by the chemistry in their body, by chemical imbalances, by being skits or being, whatever.
Yeah.
And so when they die, if you transition, that stuff at some point burns off, because you have your energy that comes in is a specific information that when it leaves, it's the life you've led is kind of like a library book. You've been putting together a book, and then at the end, it's like, oh, okay. I was affected by my chemistry. I was affected by depression. I was affected by abuse. Did I overcome this? If I didn't overcome it, some people, when they're afraid to go on because they've been told there's a hell they're going to go to or something, or they're going to be held accountable for something, and they don't go into the process, and they hang around and they are angry or they're mad. Yeah, they can be. If they were asses in real life, they can be asses in this life.
Yeah.
And I have seen examples of things where very rarely people get hurt. Very rarely, but I've seen people who have that have died from being consumed, basically, because they were doing things they shouldn't, and they didn't have enough of their aura wasn't a high enough frequency to keep them from being infected by older, darker energy, and then it just causes cancer or leukemia.
Yeah.
And a lot of people from the 60s and 70s that I knew that were considered themselves pretty well magicians, that were doing things, trying to control people, doing their thing, because when I came up, it was the witch movement, the Wicca movement, and then you had the dark magicians, the chaos magicians starting to kind of come up, and a few Satanists and a few this, and because it was all from the 60s, it was all like, well, let's look at all of it. And all the magicians that consider themselves magicians that chose a darker edge, the thing people don't understand is the darker stuff, it takes a lot to sustain negativity. Happiness, if you're happiness, it just kind of flows out. If you're sustaining anger, it takes a lot. And that will cause cancer in people sometimes, just stress.
Yeah.
And so magic is the same thing. If you go to darker energies, and they all think they're all going to control this older energy that, comes from the deeper layers of energy that have already kind of decomposing, and think they're going to control something. and they think that will give them control in life. And each one I knew that was like that was doing and striking at people and thinking it would be a good way to get vengeance and all this stuff. They all died of leukemia and cancer because it just ate their system. And so you have to be, but it's an energy, it's a frequency. So you have to be very careful. And there are so many people out there who go take a $40 certificate and say, I'm a demonologist. You can study those things, but until you really see what's out there, not just what you think as a demon or what came from the old belief systems, because everything has validity if it's had energy put into it, because we have the ability to bring things to life just by putting a little bit of our fluid, our consciousness into things. There's a lot out there. And for a while, there was a big fad of being a demonologist or trying to exorcise people. And there are churches who make a living out of that.
Yeah.
And there are people who get killed out of that because they'll kill the people. I know of an incident a couple of years ago. I know two very bad ones where a person died. Because these people just grabbed her and wouldn't let her go. And they made her throw up so much she dehydrated. She had already had a stent put in. She went home and died from the stress they put her under. And she had gone on a ghost hunt. And those people said, oh, there's something in you. And it went against her will for hours. They were trying to bully it. And finally, when she went home, she died.
Yeah.
From the stress. So it's not for, the novice. You don't become knowledgeable by not looking, or you have to look and you have to experience and you have to read and study and talk. But there are people who they want that excitement. So, and I know people who are pretty serious about it, but then they panic when something happens, So I'm like, well, you got your wish.
Yeah, that's where I draw the line between ghost hunters and actual investigators. Because I'm an actual investigator. Something happens, I run toward it. But I also go into a place with respect, like you were talking about earlier. These were once people as well, and you go in with that respect. I think you're gonna get back what you put out anyway. And if you go in there respectfully and not looking for that crazy stuff, I think you're gonna have a good experience and actually communicate with some of the people and things like that. To where if you go in with the negative, like you said, they're gonna get
you're projecting. Some energy is neutral.
Yeah,
and sometimes it will project what you're putting on it, and you're going to get back whatever you're projecting. And it's all. I think it's all you learn on your feet. I used to love to go to ghost hunting, but it really is. Everyone wanted to have a show, so it became the ulterior motive.
Yeah,
and I was like, they wanted me to come on because they wanted a show, and. I've been to so many things where there was to me, it's like fishing. You sit there, and if you sit and do the process and hold the frequency and do the diligent work, you will get what they're looking for. But the problem is the first second something starts to move or be filmed, they go, oh, oh, oh. And it's like, shh, sit, let it manifest. And they can't do it.
Yeah.
And they want to listen to the sound of their own voice. And so, talking about it. And it's like, sit here, let it open, let's see what this is. And they just go bananas. They just get through it. So to me, it just, you know, I like to do investigations. I like to do ghost huntings, but but it's a catch-22 a lot. So at some point I want to do some more of my own, but it's like, it's when you go into a group that you don't have control of the circumstances, it gets crazy.
Yeah. I think that's one reason I've never been a part of an official group. I kind of always done things on my own. And with the show here, I get invited out with other people sometimes, which is interesting because you get to see how they investigate things. But I've never been part of an official group because it seems like you're saying you always have that one person who wants to be the leader because they want to be on TV or they want that narcissistic bullshit or whatever. And I just don't want no part of that. Like I'm not an ego person. I'm not a narcissist. Like I want to go investigate. And I don't want to be labeled the tech guy or this. Who cares? We're all in this together. We're all in here to investigate. I don't need a label. Don't want a label. I want to be an investigator.
I would go on and be the fat one. And it's not. See, what I love is I love to get evidence. I love to do it.
Yeah,
love it. Love to experiment. Love to do it. Film it because people need to see those things.
Yeah.
It's just, but if that's the intent, then, it takes on a whole different monster. And you can talk to Smith. She knows the people I have my experiences with. And just the egomania that goes on, and I'm like, I think I'll stay home and clip my toenails.
Yeah.
I think I'll have a better time doing this because you work your butt off, and as me, I go and I do these things. I put 100% into what I do.
Yeah.
And then you do it, and they're supposed to be catching this information and filming and getting it. And then at the end, it's just them sitting there with a camera on them talking about something, and they don't get the nuances or the things that they just filmed.
Yeah.
And so if you're not in control of it, you can't flush it out, and say, look at this, what happened when we did this? Look at this. Because it's like, for scientists, everybody talks about dimensions, dimensional walls. I've been in several places where I know I can see dimensional walls. And I think if you could measure what a dimensional hallway typically is, because it kind of like it cinches. It's a function that's created out of the earth because of the its electromagnetic fields, and you get the dimensional hallways, what I call, or layers. And I'm like, well, I see them quite often. They're kind of like a vibrating material. Let's do some experiments and see how wide they are. See if you can detect, how wide. People don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because once you can prove the dimensional hallways, which we're going through all the time, we're wandering through them all the damn time. And then because we are a sphere of energy, we put out little ripples and spheres of energy. So we are a dimensional sphere moving through dimensional hallways that, and mixing with everyone else's dimensional their dimensional spheres, and you're kind of like a cell phone frequency.
Yeah.
And it's in there. You can make a phone call from here to there, like we're talking, and it exists, but it's also mixed in with trillions of other people's cell phone signals. But if you can detect where those hallways are and the material and what to expect between the first layer and the second layer, then you can get all sorts of results. But they want the boo, they want the scare, and the minute that they start to get the scare, they start screaming, hollering, running, and being foolish.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, sit down, shut up, and catch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just do it. But so that, I guess that makes me a hall monitor. So but I think that's being an old psychic. I'm just kind of like crudge-mudging. And but Sin and I have been on. One time I went to an investigation where, and you'll have to get her to show you the picture. It was a funeral home that had been, and it was a Halloween attraction, and there was an old 1930s or 40s Ouija board there, and there was a scientist-ish kind of person there, and they asked me about that. I didn't know it was in the house, so I told them where it was. So they went, well, we'll show you. And they went up and got it and hid it somewhere else and said, where is it now? Because I was using one of my own devices. And I told them where it was, And she took a picture of it, and you can see the spirit cord coming out of the board. And see, we've gotten several very good experiences, but the people who were there, she got that. They didn't get that.
Yeah.
And they were sitting there, and they were busy trying to figure out how to trip me up instead of trying to get information. And because the spirit board, when they brought it in, she just took a picture of it, and there's the axon cord coming out of it. Boom. And the stuff that they were trying to do, there wasn't anything for them to have because they were too busy trying to trip me up.
Right.
And I'm like, well, why are you doing that? I thought we were here to investigate. But she got a fantastic photo. And I was like, and that's what we should be doing. It was simple. And, but, so it's, I'm not trying to grouse or something. It's just that I'm just trying to explain. It's just that it can be the most wonderful, exhilarating, fascinating exploration, and then it also, depending upon the company, it can be frustrating, degrading, nasty.
Yeah.
So I've been on all of them.
Yeah, I've been fortunate to have some really good people around me who are respectable, and we share a lot of the same thoughts on the paranormal as far as being respectful and going in. And we have different ways of investigating, but we're all very serious about it, but have fun with it at the same time. And I love the fishing analogy because I use that a lot when we host public investigations. That's the first thing that I tell anybody who bought a ticket is that we may sit here for the next 5 or 6 hours and not get anything. They're not circus performers, and they're not, on demand. It's going to be what they're going to do, whatever they want to do when they want to do it. And if you come in with the right intention and the right mindset, then you're liable to get more than you do otherwise. And we usually get, interaction with that, and with usually get pretty good EVPs and things out of it, because you come in treating them like humans and like they should be treated with respect, and also talking about things that they're interested in, asking about their lives and their kids, and were you married, and all these things, instead of just can you scratch me, or can you move something, or something like that.
Make that like it up.
Yeah, you're just boring the shit out of them at that point,
Well, and yes. Now, the thing that I also like to do now for people to go on these investigations, I've invented or came up with my own veil splitter, which what happens is we go in, find the energy spot, everyone gets comfortable. I split the veil with help from everybody using their frequencies and using their vocalizations, and then film. Then you'll see, it get you, because also with going to haunted places and things like that, they need energy to function.
Yeah.
But you need to give them energy outside of yourself so that you don't wear yourself out.
Yeah.
You give them a little bit of energy to use, and then when you leave, you take back that energy, purify it, and take it back, so that you don't just leave the car running. But if you're in a haunted place, I go in and I sit and I'll say, now watch, let's do this experiment and see what happens. And then you do it, and it will just open up, the veil.
Yeah.
And then you get to see what's beyond there. And when you're done putting the frequency on it, it shuts again. It just shuts. It self-heals. And then after you're done, then you've gotten your information and your experience, and then you go. And if there's any energies that need help, like someone who's in traumatized or whatever, you see if you can help them.
Yeah.
Or if it's, whatever the experience is. But I like to go in and, I will fish, but I will fish with the right rod.
Yeah.
And reel. I will fish with the right bait. but I will also go in and be, now if I have to be brusque or be, say, don't do that, because sometimes there are energies that you don't want in your field. Then you have to know how to do that as well. But you have to go in prepared, ready, and then you can have a wonderful experience and get to see there is something that goes on. Because when we dive, we're energy. That energy goes specific places.
Yeah.
And, I know a lot of people who think when you die that your spirit just goes to sleep until Jesus comes back. And it's like, that's not exactly what I'm saying. Because it's energy. And you do nobody any good being dead energy. There's no such thing as, it's frequency, it's energy. And it's a recorded energy that spent 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 years in a container. So when it's released, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's a natural process and there's a not so natural process. So it's, that there's a lot of it. I think it's good for us to understand what's out there and to find it and be able to say, well, okay, now. But what I like people to do is look at it and go, okay, what caused that? What can we replicate that? What are the implications of what I just saw?
Yeah.
And for some people, it's just to see that there's something else. And sometimes, and then there's some people, they would rather never ever see a ghost, never be around it. And there are people, I have a dear, 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 dear friend who loves to go on ghost hunts, and I have been knocked over and jumped over. I have been left laying in a darkened place while they were running. They knocked me over, grabbed somebody else, and about killed me, on their way out because they had the fight or flight, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought it was hysterical. But I was like, never get in front of them when you're having a ghost hunt. And they were an EMT.
Yeah.
And I thought they should be pretty strong. But when the minute they see it, boy, boom. And if you were in the way, you were in trouble.
Yeah.
And but it should, and and for a lot of people, it's a innocent entertainment.
Yeah.
But then a lot of people go into places are rude to the spirits, and then just leave that running and go, okay, I'm done, and they walk off. So, just think about it, before you do any of it. Why are you getting into it?
Right.
And if you have the opportunity to go do it, it's a rare opportunity to go do it. I haven't got to go on a ghost hunt in forever. Years. Couple of years. I think I had a funeral home down here I got to go look at. They tore the funeral home down, but the embalming room is still standing. That they used it, turned it to a salon, but it's haunted by Martha Beck, the serial killer.
Mm.
Had a when I was there investigating her, which she is a jerk in a spirit form. She and her boyfriend, she came from here, went to New York, met him. They went on a killing spree, killing Lonely Hearts kind of club women.
Yeah. And
20 women and a toddler, they think.
Wow.
All of them. And then when they were caught, they took her to Sing Sing, put her in the electric chair, sent her back here to be pickled at the funeral home she used to work at down here, and then she was buried secretly. And so she still haunts the funeral home, and she is quite the special person. But when I was doing it, the thing with channeling, I picked up a channeling of someone else who was there, and all the spirit could say was the grave is cold and wet. So we came back, and I did that one separately, and I did a film of it. And when I channel, I have a protected system I use, an energy form. You put like a Teflon coating on you, and so that when you channel, they come into a created space. But when it's finished, then you just, you release that energy, eject that energy, and then you're not, infected. And it was very interesting. It was just this poor spirit that was there that had never got out of their head about being dead.
Yeah. And
they had just eventually, they just were in their casket. And when I could see through their eyes, they could see through mine. And when I looked through their eyes, they were laying in this metal casket full of water and mold and everything. And the lining, the white satin thing they put in, it was all falling down on their face. And they were just like, it's cold. And I thought, no, Sherlock, no, Sherlock. And because you could feel it. And I thought that's because plasma is usually cold unless they are able to absorb thermal heat. And I tried to release the spirit, but it was like someone with a head injury. It was like they just knew enough to know when they were conscious, they weren't happy, so you couldn't talk them into anything like, turning on their system, turning on their own third eye. When people say, see the light, go into the light. Well, what that is them turning on their third eye and processing through their aura into the next sphere.
Yeah.
And so when you tell spirit, go into the light, you're not really telling them to just walk into a light. They're turning on the light in their own system so they can download and then upload. And he just couldn't be released. So what happens to those kind of spirits is eventually they just keep getting thicker and thicker, and then they get reabsorbed, and then eventually they get reabsorbed back up to where they need to be or where they need to go. But it's like oil, in the forest when the trees and the animals and the leaves decay, it seeps into the earth and makes a fluid. And that's where the darker things are, and sometimes that's where discarnates go. It's just they just get caught up in the degrading energy, and eventually they get absorbed, and then they get reprocessed, and then eventually the consciousness gets to where it needs to be. It's just a longer path.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm not talking too much.
Oh no, you're completely fine. You're fine. Switch gears a little bit before we get done here. You have your own podcast that you do on YouTube called Universal Truths.
Yeah. And it is Universal Truths. I do it through Cat Hobson, WBMDB. and my brain is, I'm having a brain fart. And but we had been just strictly a radio show, and now we're doing live shows. So where you get to see my scary face every week, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been fun. And you can, it's on YouTube, Universal Truths, Mark Fults, Fults. And I do any weird subjects or strange, or I cover all sorts of metaphysical subjects. But then also I try to cover like human issues, things that we go through in the modern world that affect our spirit or our energy or our development. So it can be anything, from death, near death, life, aliens, Anunnaki, vampires, witches, kind of, whatever. Anything anyone wants to talk about or hear, but haunted dolls.
Yeah.
But I always try to speak from my own experience, and I try to make it personal. So, because a lot of people, I think, get way out of their sphere sometimes. It's like, nah, I'll talk about what's going on. And if it helps you, it helps you.
Yeah.
Or interests you, So, but it's a lot of fun. I feel like I've been very blessed, very busy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you also, for a long time, you've had your own metaphysical shop called Gypsy Rose.
Gypsy Moon.
Gypsy Moon, I'm sorry.
And that as, let's get this spelling right. It's here in Milton. It's flea market at the P Ridge Flea Market on Highway 90, and I'm in Space 29, and I'm there Friday, Saturdays, Sundays. And if people want to reach me, they can contact me on Facebook. On Mark Elliott Fults. The Elliott is ELLIOTT FULTS. And I can meet people at the store anytime if they want readings or need me to go do, or I do house cleansings, and I think I'm getting ready to do psychic parties, So, but it's been fun. It's been a very a nice little metaphysical gift store. The first few months were hysterical because people would come by and grab their children and run like they thought I was going to grab them and eat them like gingerbread. And I'm like, it was hysterical. And so now they've gotten onto that I'm fairly like an old hippie, Yeah. I just sit, and if somebody wants a reading, I got readings. If they want some incense, there's some incense, there's some candles, there's a sun catcher, whatever or an antique, so I just have fun.
Yeah.
So, and I just, I just try to be there for people if they need it. And also there are people who come by that are in metaphysics that they're just glad to see someone kind of representing them.
Yeah.
Because it's a cute little store and everything, but it's not like, it's not like the witch's gingerbread house, you lure you in. But I also don't go out just grabbing people, try to drag them in. I'm like, if you want to come in, here it is.
Yeah.
And if you want to sit and talk, I have great conversations with people, and it's kind of the way that it's built. It's the door is open, so during when I'm open, so you get to experience the breezes and the rain and the sun, and it's beautiful. So it's very healthy for me, so.
Yeah.
So, but yes. But it's Space 29 at the P Ridge Flea Market.
Yeah, and you've got quite a few books up on Amazon and Kindle. And
yeah.
I'll put links to all those in the show notes. And like you said, you're working on a cookbook as well that will be out soon.
Yes, my mean old grandma's Good old cookbook. Now, Sam will tell you how great. Well, see, I started off because I love to eat. I love to cook. And my grandmother was a great cook, terrible person. Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible person. Terrible. But best cook I ever met, because she grew up being the head cook. She ended up being a head cook on a farm in Texas, and she knew how to do all the Southern cooking with lard and great chicken and cakes and whatever.
Yeah.
And so I did the recipes. We did all the nice little recipes, and I went, well, the stuff they would eat was that they would eat off the farm. You didn't go in their house and say, what's in that pot?
Yeah.
Unless you really wanted to know, because it could be big brains and eggs, it could be intestines, it could be anything. So the first part of the book is the Pretty Sister recipes, and the back part are, and it has a warning. It says, if you're delicate, don't read these. And they are the recipes of the crap they would eat. But back then, you didn't waste anything.
Yeah, right.
But I also have a section on funeral food, funeral cakes that they used to make, frozen Charlotte stuff. There was a very famous poem in the 1800s, and they made dolls off of it, where a woman froze to death on a buggy ride because she was being vain and wouldn't wear a jacket. And so they made dolls, they made frozen desserts, so they're made off of a dead person poem.
Yeah.
So I have the history of funeral foods and things they would eat, when the Sin Eater kind of stuff. And I've always heard of Sin Eaters, but I actually had never heard of the speech the Sin Eater would give when he finished eating the sin before he left the home, or left the corpse, after eating off of it. And I found the speech, so I have all that stuff in there. So it's going to be a weird cookbook, but there are stuff in there that we cook stuff all the time out of my own recipes. There's really good stuff, and so there's really good recipes and really nasty ones.
Yeah.
So, but it's the stuff that people really ate.
Yeah.
So I think we're having a good time. But I'll throw all these recipes at her, and she'll go, I was going along. It was about candy, and it was great. And it's like, about deer haggis, and she goes, and it's hysterical. We scream all the time. Because we'll put in, you bake, you bake it, you ice it, and then you throw up,
Right.
So on my show, I'll probably tie people to chairs and make them eat this stuff. Because there's some crap I ain't trying.
Yeah.
There ain't no way, but I will make somebody else do that.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of books with Sin and with Teal Gray and in my own series, which like Chattanooga Chills. I'm about to do one for Pensacola. And, so we just have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I did see one of your books that I didn't know that you had done about the Corpsewood murders.
Oh yeah.
I need to check that out.
I'm going to redo that one, but yeah, that's a funky book.
Yeah. It's a fascinating story. And
thank you. But I hate that book. But it's true.
Yeah.
So, it's not just about the Corpsewood people. It's about the freaks I knew.
Yeah.
And, it's just an awful part of life. But I learned so much out of it.
Yeah.
That I'm glad that you enjoy it. But I'm going to go back and retool that one because now I'm really, I found a lot more information about the Corpsewood thing that, I think is interesting and kind of go back. It was earlier on when I was starting to do books, and sometimes you look back and you go, oh, I would do that a little differently.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to do it a little differently. But that one, yeah, I hate that book.
Yeah.
People like it. People go, it's a good book, but I go, I hate that. But it was to get it off my plate.
Yeah.
And but it's very it did, and it did, but it's not one I want to sit down and thumb through myself. because there were some really dark people there.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. A few years ago, I had Amy Petula on the show, and she does the Chattanooga ghost tours. And she wrote, she wrote a book about the Corpsewood murders, and me and her talked about it way back then. And it's just, I like it when the paranormal and true crime kind of cross over, because I'm interested in both, especially the psychology of both. And so, but I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, but it's I know Amy Petula. She actually uses some of my stories on her tour. We've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And before I left, I was doing a little ghost tour downtown. So, but it's she's got a very good book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and Corpsewood is a very interesting place. It's just kind of dangerous, people want to go up there, and I'm like, it's kind of, they find people dead up there a lot,
Yeah.
So it's like, no, it's not the spooks you have to be careful of. It's the crazy, inbred people.
Yeah. All right, Mark. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I hope I didn't overtalk your ear.
No, you're just fine. And I'll put links in the show notes to all of your books and stuff, and we'll be looking forward to your crazy cookbook coming out.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're pretty well close to the end of that one, because but we went through a period where there was like a string of like 40 recipes that were just so gross. And we were just, I thought, I have to go eat something sweet or do something and get out of this,
Palate cleanser.
And so it's, but when you talk to her, she'll tell you these things.
Yeah.
And in her own way, where it's hysterical. So I've taken her down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Eric, for having me on. That was very sweet of you.
It was my pleasure.
And we'll talk again here pretty soon.
Yeah, for sure.
One way for profession. And if you and Sin ever want to come down this way, I'll find something for everybody to look at.
Yeah, and I'd love to do an investigation with you. That'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. I'll show you how we do it. We crack the egg.
Yeah.
I'll show you how we do it. Crack the egg. Keep that camera going, and, so we're on the same page. So, sit and listen and watch.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you, we can find some things. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. All right, everybody.
Yeah.
Y'all stay safe out there. We'll see you next time. Have a good day. Thank you for listening to The Unseen Paranormal. Join me next Wednesday with a brand new guest. And please rate, review, share, and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. This helps more people discover the show. You can connect with me over on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or join us in the Unseen Paranormal Lounge group on Facebook. Until next time, remember, some of the scariest things are unseen. You have come to the end of the line.